Урок номер 16. Lesson number 16. Здравствуй. Hello. Как у тебя дела? How are you? Up to this point, you've learned a little about irregularities or rules that are occasionally broken. The best way for learning Russian, or any other foreign language for that matter, is to learn to discern patterns and rules and then memorize exceptions to these rules. Unfortunately, language isn't like math, and even though there are many patterns, not everything is regular. For example, the first irregularity that you learned is the following. The letter O represents the O sound. But, as you now know, although the correct spelling is ona, most Russian people pronounce the word as ana. This is because the letter O is not stressed, and the pronunciation is therefore ana. Alright, so is this a rule or an irregularity? Think of it this way. First, it is an irregularity because the letter O, which usually represents O sound, is substituted with the A sound. But the way this irregularity works is actually very regular. Do you remember this rule? If the letter O is stressed, then it is always pronounced as the sound O. If the letter O is not stressed, then it is always pronounced somewhat like the sound A. I say somewhat because it is not exactly an A sound, but for our purpose we'll say that it is close enough to say that it is. Now practice saying these words. Рот, рот, mouth. Она, she. Кот, кот, cat. Они, they. Он, he. Говорить, to speak. I hope it all makes sense. If it does, then you're ready to learn about one more rule about this letter, ye. I've covered the pronunciation of this letter in words like меня and есть, нет, but there's one exception to the rule that we didn't talk about, and now is a good time. You've probably noticed that just like letter O, the letter ye is pronounced slightly different when it is in the unstressed position. For example, even though the correct spelling is меня зовут, but it's better to sound like Russians, so say меня зовут. Remember this rule. The letter ye is pronounced like the letter e when it is not stressed. For example, do you remember how to say a bear in Russian? That's right, медведь. So it is written медведь, but it is pronounced медведь, медведь. Now think for a moment, why do I say медведь and not медведь? My pronunciation of the word медведь is медведь because the first ye is not stressed, so instead of saying медведь, I say медведь. The second ye is stressed, and because it follows the consonant, it's pronounced as ve, so медве, and the last sound is t, not d. So it is just more natural for a Russian person to say it t. We'll talk about this rule later on. Alright, so how do you pronounce this word? That's right, привет. So if you don't know how to spell this word, you might be thinking, do I spell it привет with the letter ye or with the letter e? Because now, as you know, pri can both be represented by ye and e, and because it is unstressed, you really have to check the spelling in a dictionary or online just to make sure that you don't make a spelling mistake. However, with the vet syllable, it's very clear that the correct spelling is with the letter ye. So in this case, привет is spelled with the letters E and ye. Alright, so just to summarize, these rules are quite simple, you just need to follow them. If the letter ye is stressed, then don't worry too much, just use the other rules that will guide you whether you should pronounce it with or without the y sound. For example, сел versus съел, or если, or нет. If the letter ye is not stressed, then it is pronounced in everyday speech as i. So even though the correct way of saying food in Russian is еда, in everyday speech Russians say еда. Now the letter e, as we said, is not very common. When stressed, it is always pronounced e, is in this word. Это, this or this is. But if it is not stressed, it approximates the sound e, but it is almost unnoticeable. For example, электричество is pronounced электричество. Экономика is pronounced more like экономика. Express is pronounced sometimes express. The difference in the pronunciation is so slight, however, that you can pronounce both either as e or e, and you will be understood. The vowels that pronounce are always the same are a, u, you, ya, and yo. So we already talked about the pronunciation of these letters, so you don't have to know anything else. Just follow the rules that you've already learned. So let's practice. How do you say no in Russian? Нет. How do you say yes? Да. How do you say if? Если. Весна means spring, is pronounced весна, but it is spelled весна. Лето. Лето. This is the only way to pronounce this word, which means summer. Why? Because the letter ye is stressed. So лето. However, because the letter o is unstressed, we pronounce it more like a. Лето. Лето. Осень. Осень means fall or autumn. Now, o is stressed, so it is pronounced like o, but the letter ye is not, so we pronounce it more like i. Осень. Осень. Зима. Зима means winter, and the spelling is something you just simply have to memorize. You would think that zima could be spelled z or ze, ma, because the first syllable is unstressed. It's somewhat unclear how it is spelled unless you learn the spelling first. So if I say zima, and you're not sure how to spell the word winter, is it zema or zima, then go to the dictionary or check online and you'll know that it is zima. But we of course say zima. Где? Где? This is the only way to pronounce где, where. Здесь. Здесь. Again, since there's only one vowel and one letter ye, stressed, здесь is the only pronunciation available. How do you say a hedgehog in Russian? Ёж. Ёж. Ant, as in aunt and uncle. That's right. Тётя. Тётя. And finally, earth, like the planet Earth or earth, the ground. Земля. Земля. Why do you think it is spelled земля? Well, because it is the correct spelling, and when we say земля, that's simply because the pronunciation of the unstressed ye is more like i, земля. Very good. Alright, well, just two more words and we're done. The name Julia in Russian is, that's right, Yulia, Yulia. And love in Russian is любовь, любовь. Again, we'll talk about the pronunciation of consonants that are at the very end of the word in a bit. Alright, спасибо, thank you, and I hope to see you soon. Please support my channel and do let me know if these lessons are helpful. Пока!